Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lore and Fray, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. And the reason Jaw of the Dragon is taking so long, the reason why I haven't been working on it this weekend very much, is because I was hooked on Sifu. This is a game. If I had played it day one, I had it downloaded already, but I didn't have the time to play it until the past couple of days. If I had like the free time, I would have played this like in a single sitting. I would have played this motherfucker until my hands bled and my fingers broke because this game is a downright masterpiece. Probably one of the best kung fu action games I've ever played. I hesitate to really call it to compare it to something like Bayonetta. I think it's more like, or I compare it more to like the Batman Arkham games or the River City games. Like it's a roguelite, I should call it, action game that is incredibly fun to play, great boss fights, great stage design, great music, great cinematography. It's just all around like a stellar, wonderful experience. Like, it really does feel like this is a game that really could have come out of the 80s. Like, it really does have that feel to it because I found myself like replaying levels over and over and over and over and over and over again, trying to find all the secrets, trying to master the mechanics, trying to figure out which moves are best, trying to figure out like which moves work best on bosses, how to beat some bosses. What are my weird complaints about this? Okay, the bosses in general are top tier, right? Like, I generally really like the mechanics, but like the way the roguelite system works is that like every time you die, you lose some of the moves you have unlocked, and you kind of have to go out of your way to keep them unlocked. Like you have a feature where you can permanently unlock them, and in my opinion, it takes way, way, way too long to unlock everything. I almost feel like the game would have been fine with just having like the aging system be like the roguelite aspect to it and have like the stat change. Like having moves locked behind like a experience paywall, having like these statues you have to find lying around in order to power up your character. I really, really, really hate that. It's a big reason why I don't like roguelites. It's one of the reasons I'm so conflicted on this game because, on one hand, I think it's a masterpiece. I think from an action game standpoint, it has a lot of things going for it, from like the level design, from the boss design to to just general like fun, interesting, engaging moments with a lot of cool exploration and navigating these areas. Like, there are only 5 levels in this game, but they're so unique and distinct from anything else you've ever seen. And because they have like so much going on, and because you have to play them over and over and over again, you end up really, really appreciating them. But like the roguelite aspect, where like you just lose all of your progress, it's just, it feels almost like if this game was like a normal action game, I probably would have breezed through it. Like, this is my big problem with roguelike games in general, is that like either you think it's like the greatest thing ever that you have to like go through them over and over and over again to like master everything, and like even if like things aren't like in your favor, if you don't have like the right build or whatever, or like you're like me and you just kind of think that like you're technically wasting your time. Right, like there were times here where I find myself getting kind of frustrated with how often I realized in boss 3 and 4 specifically, is that like the build I had done for my character wasn't very good for those bosses. Like, there is a weapon catch feature where you can catch knives that are thrown at you. That's basically only good against the third boss. I don't even know how to beat the fourth boss. I just kind of like flung myself at her and like blocked all of her attacks, and I managed to like get a low enough age rating to like move on and beat the final boss, just barely, by the way. It was brutal, and I didn't even get the good endings. I was aware there were like better endings, and considering how often I was replaying these stages, I think I probably would have gotten it if the game allowed you to like spare bosses the first time. Apparently it doesn't until after you beat Yang and get the bad ending. The game really wants to emphasize that like, ooh, violence isn't the answer. But I don't know. It's the story, by the way. I think a lot of critics have have underestimated the strength of the storytelling, because I found myself like very intrigued by like the premise and like the mystical aspects and like the fantasy elements. Like I thought the story was actually very interesting. For those of you who aren't aware, I actually really like this stuff. My novel Jaw of the Dragon is actually structured very similarly, and like that the protagonist has to go up against all these crazy fighters from around the world. Like it's I love this kind of thing. So like seeing this like executed so well in a video game format really makes me happy. I think not enough games do that. Like that Metal Gear style of just like having bosses that actually have motivations, that actually have ideas, that actually have like unique things that you have to do to beat them. Like I love that stuff, and I don't think enough games do that. I really don't. Like there are only a handful of games that I would say do that. Like Devil's Third is one. Metal Gear I mentioned. They're just like there aren't that many examples of this kind of like of this kind of thing in a video game format, and I really want to see more of it. And I really hope the developers are interested in pursuing a sequel, because I think if they can expand on this concept and really clean up some of like the rougher aspects, I do think unlocking things permanently is unnecessary. I do think you should be able to just get the experience and buy a move and then like just keep it forever. I don't think you should have to like go through this process of having to pay for the same thing multiple times. I just don't like that at all. But all in all, I think this is probably the second best indie game I've played this year. It's nowhere near as good as like Neon White, which in my opinion is probably flawless. uh, Honestly, I think that game is like spectacular and super underrated. But uh, from a gameplay perspective, the story doesn't really do it for me. But uh, yeah, Sifu it did live up to the hype. Like I really thought like early on that it might be as good or better than God Hand, which I think is like generally considered like to be the all-time like goat when it comes to this kind of thing. And I don't think that now. I think the game does have like some rough aspects. I do prefer like everything about God Hand's like storytelling, from its like how you build your character, like the general gameplay loop, like the dodge. Weirdly enough, Sifu does have like the same dodge mechanic that God Hand does. However, like it maps it to different buttons. So instead of the right stick, you have to hold L and then like press back and left. And I don't know why they did it that way. I would like clearly I am 100% convinced. I don't know if the developers have actually released a statement about this. There is no way they were not influenced by God Hand like playing this. Like it has the same kind of like kung fu aspect to it. Like it really does come off like they're aping the God Hand thing with the dodging and how prevalent it is. And unfortunately, it doesn't feel as smooth as God Hand. There are a lot of times where it feels like you're fighting guys that you really shouldn't be struggling with. There are times where I just ended up like going through a level and then just meeting every wave of enemies is the same way every time, right? So every time I would come against an enemy or a situation that I was like uncomfortable with, I would like just play it so often that I would start like min maxing it, right? Where I would take out like all the guys in the most efficient way possible without really giving them like a chance to like put myself in an awkward position, to like not letting myself get surrounded or having to fight these tough guys all by like it just there are a lot of things. The game is incredibly challenging. I don't think I mentioned that actually. I mentioned the NES aspect to it, but that's what I meant by that is like the challenge. This is probably one of the hardest games I've played in a long time. I can't think of anything I've played recently that has had me dying so often and like to such difficult enemies. It's been like even now, after finishing the final boss, after finishing like all the bosses, I'm not sure I could go back there right now and beat them all easily. Like the first two for sure, but the later ones, not really. Like they have so many like crazy moves, and like you can't get good hits off of them half the time. Like I feel like I don't actually have the move set like necessary to deal with them, or else I'm doing something wrong. Like even after finishing the game, I really get this impression that I don't really understand the combat all that well. Right? It took me forever to learn how to dodge. It took me forever to learn how to parry. What else do I not know? There has to be like a lot more that I don't understand, and it's that kind of gameplay, that kind of depth that really keeps players coming back for years afterward. Like this isn't my favorite indie game this year, but like it probably is the one that I'm going to go back to the most in the near future. Like I don't have any plans to go back to Neon White like anytime soon, but in the case of Sifu, I already started my second playthrough. Like I already started like that process of like sparing all the bosses and getting the true ending, even though it doesn't really like get you anything. Like it's just a thing that exists, like for completionists or whatever. It's cool that they included it. It really gives you makes you understand just how much effort and passion they put into this game. And I deeply, deeply respect that. Sifu is an absolute masterpiece. Other than some like random crashes I've had on the Nintendo Switch version, which I'm sure will be patched, I had a positively flawless time with this. This was a remarkable experience and one that I highly, highly recommend you check out.